tells me to rotate your phone. It's interesting.
Yeah, I remember yesterday it was like, it didn't, I think it records better that way.
Yeah, okay, well, hi guys. Hello everybody. Nice to be here again. Ruviam is asleep, so I'll keep my voice down. Callie is beside me, working on our project, our main project right now, the birthing course. She's very dedicated to it. So maybe it's just gonna be me today. Maybe she'll hop in and say a few words. Anyway, again, it's a great honor to be here and to share, and I miss that. I've noticed how more and more I want to share, how that gives me great value, even if the physical feedback is not always there. It's just feel enormously good to be able to express and share all those amazing experiences that I'm having and that we are having, and really step into a new life. All of what I have imagined and dreamt of for many, many years, and probably also lifetimes, is right now available and manifesting, and I'm stepping fully into it, and I'm really happy to experience that and to enjoy that type of life, which I was always looking for and always feeling inside of me that they are right there, available, and they are right now here with me. So I'm excited. I'm excited to share. It's really about sharing. It's, for me, that's probably the fifth element. is sharing, is the communication, it's the sound, it's what the vibration that we give to this reality, and that we can share it with each other. And what wonderful times we have now that technology is sped up also to meet the needs of awakening, and is available, and it's allowing us to touch each other vocally and spiritually, and even see each other, and we can be spread all across the globe, and we are still able to do that in the tip of our fingers. So a lot of gratitude to that. Today I'd like to touch a very interesting subject, and it can be summed up with a simple question. What is your relationship to objects? And I'm saying objects because objects and subjects can interchange, and I'll touch about it later again. But again, what is then your connection, your relationship to objects? We're using them daily, regularly. If it's from the knife that helps us cut and prepare food, to the phone that we are more and more attached to the car that we are driving, to the house that we are occupying, to the clothes that we are wearing. Objects are in plenty out there, in abundance, and we constantly relate to them. We touch them, we use them, and that's maybe the most important part of this conversation. We use objects. So what's the relationship behind that? Because using an object kind of points to a very singular way of relating to anything. Almost as if there's a one-way street, and we are the beginning and the object is the end, and there's that transmission of energy that goes from us to the object, and then the use of the object. And probably that's why objects are slowly starting decaying. The more we touch them, the more we use them, we almost observe their energy or use their energy, their life source, their energy, and let it fade in a way. So what is your relationship with objects? And I'll share a story about myself and about my relationships with objects. And it's important to remember that it's my personal story. So, when at the age of 18, an uncle of mine gave me a book, and that book was a milestone in my life, and it changed my life. What kind of a book is it is not important right now. The most important is, for the sake of conversation, is that it's a book, that it's an object, and that object contained information, and most of all contained a certain type of vibration, of energy, and that triggered me, that touched me, and I responded to that energy, and it made me change the course of my life through opening another doorway, through opening another perception and perspective. I could see a whole new dimension suddenly, and I started walking that dimension, and that led me to spirituality. And until that point, I was looking mainly for answers in the Bible and in my surroundings, and growing up in Israel at the 80s and the early 90s. That was my environment, and this is where I looked for information, for answers to the questions that I always felt inside of me. Why are we here? What's all of this about? What's the point in all of this? Why is there so much anger in the world and so much fear? And I always felt that there is more for me, a calling, a bigger picture that wasn't given to me when I was a child. So I looked for those answers in my surroundings and in the Bible, and I found more questions over there than answers. And I'm a huge believer in the Bible, by the way. I'm a huge believer. But the book that have changed my life, or that opened a whole new dimension to my life, wasn't the Bible. It was a different book, a book about channeling. And that led me into exploring that vista. Spirituality, channeling, magic, fantasy, the dark side, the occult, aliens, space, other life forms. In a way, it took me out of my body, took me out of my surroundings. This was the time before the internet was spread out. It was just the time when internet started to exist. So later on in my journey, I could use the internet in order to continue my explorations. But in the beginning, it wasn't that. So it opened up my curiosity to those subjects, and I started looking more into, mostly in books. I didn't share much with other people about this interest of mine. I was afraid of the reactions, of judging me. This is how I grew up. I grew up with a lot of the scrutiny and a lot of judgment, and I was conditioned to not trusting other people in that. So I kept my journey to myself. And that journey is unique to me. And I'm sure that each and every one of us has a similar story. An object, or a person, or maybe an accident that led you to explore more about yourself, to explore more about what's out there. I am still surrounded with some people who are dedicating their worldview into one channel, into one vista. And they've become expert in that. They've become very good in understanding the information that they receive from that channel. And that could be even just a channel, a TV channel, a medium that provides them with some kind of an information. and they've become very, they excel in this information, and it's impossible to talk with them about that because they are very good at that. They have a lot of knowledge in it, but they lack the expansion. They lack the knowledge of what else is there. And there's no judgment about it. This is what we choose to do, what I chosen from an early age to expand my knowledge and the prism through which I looked on the world. And that brought me later on also to explore ancient Eastern philosophies such as Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism, and that again opened up my mind to so many possibilities and so many theories and so many explanations. And I continued it later on with other aspects and other groups, and then I opened up myself to Christianity, and later I opened up myself to Islam. So there was all of that intermingling of information, cultural experiences, observing, a lot of observing of how other people live their life, of how other cultures live their life, even ancient cultures that do not exist anymore. And I'm happy to say that I could find truth in each and any of those. If it was looking into space and looking into astronomy, if it was reading about aliens and other life form species, if it was about connecting with Muslim people, if it was anything that I came in touch with, I kept on my broad way of looking on life, and I could see how there is a single truth that unites us all. The stories divert, and the way people are doing things is different, because each and every one of us is different. Even if you look to a religion or even to a household, there is no two people that share the same story, that share the same beliefs. It's always slightly different. And that's what makes us special. We are all observing reality from our own unique perspective, and the sum of all of that is the truth. That's a very important thing. The sum of all of those perspectives is the truth. And yet, you can look at it as a funnel, and it's all boils down to the same thing. We are all looking for the same thing. We are all after the same things. We are all wish for the same things, and we are all walking in the same direction, just from different angles. And there's a lot of beauty in it. And walking through that path and experiencing all of those experiences, coming in contact with so many people, there's always the question of how do I relate to them. And this is how I started today's conversation, talking about what's the relationship to object, and mentioning that object and subject and people are intertwined. The reason is that we are not always acknowledging a person as a universe. Let's stop for a second and think about this concept, that the next person beside you is a universe. He or she looks at the world and has perception, has feelings, emotions, tons of them. Each and every one of us is a world on its own, a world, not only a person or a single thought. We are capable of so much expression and so much reception. How often do we stop and we recognize the next person as being a unique and wonderful world? There's a lot in it. Ruviam is waking up. And there's a correlation here to objects. For how we treat object is not so far from how we treat people. Yeah, it's a statement, I know. And of course, there's a lot of different meanings to it, but in general, how I relate to something that is outside of me has the same correlation. So if I relate to a book or to a car or to a stone or to a person, it might look different, but the base of it is the same. And it is, how do I relate to something that is outside of me, and how much do I allow it to affect my life? It's also interesting because the more I allow it to be part of my life means actually, or comes from how much I allow myself to appreciate that. For what I don't appreciate, I will shut. I will turn away from my life. I will not acknowledge. So what I'm touching here is the core of acknowledgement, of acknowledging a person, an object, to be a unique part of my world. Now, when I was little, when I was a child, I literally believed that every object has a life. Hey, Ruviami. מה שלומך בבלה? Every object had a life. I remember feeling deep sorrow when a toy of mine got broken, or when even something as simple as a pen ran out of ink and was useless. I found it impossible to depart from it. I found it so hard and so sad to throw it into the garbage bin, because there was something deep in me that told me that this thing has a life, that this thing has an energy, and even if it ran out of use, it is still very much alive. And I could feel that, and I just didn't know how to explain it and how to express it, and didn't even know what it means. And then I heard from society and from the people around me that I'm too sensitive and that I shouldn't be like that. So I started suppressing that. I started blocking my own sensitivity. I started to become more tough and ready for reality. Which doesn't mean a thing, by the way. Reality is what we make it, and not the other way around. We've been conditioning generations after generations to believe that they have to adapt to reality instead of adapting reality to the human being. It's an interesting concept. Reality is our manifestation, is what we project from inside to the outside, which also means my reality is very different than yours. There are similarities, there are other things that we are agreeing on, and we call them mass consciousness. We agree that there are rules, that there is a gravity, that the sky has a certain color, that the water evaporates, becomes clouds, and then they rain on us again. We agree to those geometric, chemical, biological, and physical forms. But how we perceive it and how we engage with it, it's very different. And we have been conditioned, and society is continuing doing it to the next generation again and again and again, teaching them to adapt to reality. Instead, which comes from the lack of the understanding that reality is adapting itself to the perceiver, to the observer, to the human, to the godly aspect in us. But once we can understand that concept, everything is changing. And I believe everything should change in that direction. Because look at what's happening with the new generation of children that comes here, and they have a lot of energy and a lot of understanding and a lot of knowledge, and they do not fit in the systems that are running out there, in the school systems, in the business systems. They do not fit. So we label them. We label them with OCDs and so many other misconceptions and disabilities or dysfunctionalities, and we drug them. We give them a chemical substance to adjust them to what we believe reality is. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, Ruvi? Achon babale. Yeah, literally, let's stop and look at the things. They are very simple. We are not accepting the children as they are. We are telling them that they are wrong. And we try to adjust them to fit in, instead of adjusting the outside to fit into them, because they are the future. They are already here. The future is already here, always. And that was what was done also to me. I was highly sensitive, and I was taught to suppress that sensitivity and to focus. And I'm not saying it's not important to focus. It's very, very important to be able to focus in order to be able to experience this to be able to be active in this reality. You can experience this reality in so many ways, even not being focused at all. But in order to be productive in this reality, yes, we need to focus. And I guess this is why society is conditioning us again and again to be focused, because the brain is conditioned to be productive. However, productivity can, and already did, leap into another understanding. And we can be very productive by channeling ourselves into being focused at the right time and in the right moment. This is called synchronicity. And we don't need to be focused and productive every second of life. We can be productive when we need to. We can enjoy life when we need to. We can be absent-minded when we need to. We can be dreaming when we need to. Life has all of these varieties, not only production. So it's actually just being able to shift between all of those layers of life in order to get things done, as we like to say it. We don't need to be productive 8 hours a day at work to get the things done. We have the ability, we are born with this ability, to be able to channel ourselves and to be productive in 1 hour a day, and to do the same type of work that would take us 8 hours a day under a different conditioning. Anyways, so I was sensitive. And it took me a while to start shedding skin again and to start realizing that the conditioning I have on my brain and on my thinking is a prison to my creativity and to a higher, I don't like to call it higher, let's call it expanded understanding. So I started gradually, virtually picking up a hammer and hammering down, breaking down all of those concepts I had, all of those walls I had, shielding me from society and protecting my sensitivity. And I started again reconnecting with my own feelings. And we have a broad spectrum of feelings, people. So many, and they are all wonderful and they are all pleasant. Even the ones we perceived as unpleasant. It's another interesting concept for a different talk. So going through that, it took me a while again to come back to my own self as a child, bringing back again that inner child in me, allowing it back to the surface, reminding me that yes, everything has a life. The reason is that everything has a vibration. All of the objects outside yourself have a vibration, and you are the source of that vibration. This is also very interesting. So, everything outside is a projection of your inside, and it can hold or it can respond to a certain amount of energy that you bestow on it by you projecting vibration. And we project vibration constantly. It is in our mind, projecting thoughts. It is with our hands when we create. It is with the sound of our voice. It is with the look of our eyes, where we channel light and we give vibration. And everything responds to that, because life around is a plasma. It's not as solid as it feels to be. It's a plasma, and it catches our vibration, our energy, and it starts vibrating, rotating. And that signals back to us what we are signaling to it, which is an amazing concept. So yeah, everything that you come across has a vibration, and that vibration is yours. It's responding to you. It's sending back the signal to you. So you are very much alive, and the more you realize that you are alive, the more things around you become alive. The more that you can connect to them, the more that you can be productive with them. A synchronicity starts building between you and the objects, you and the book that you are reading. I'm at a point that I don't even need to read a whole book anymore. It's enough for me to lay a hand on it. It's enough for me to feel the essence of it. Connecting with this little guy, which doesn't speak words yet. I can connect with him better than I can connect with some people out there, with most people actually out there. And the reason is because we share a vibration and an acceptance and an understanding to that vibration. אתה רוצה את זה? Babe, can you grab that little thing? He wants the...
Yeah, but I don't want him to put it in his mouth.
No? Okay,
Yeah.
he's like really fixed on it right now. He's fixed on
things that hang.
on things that hang. Yeah, that's
Butterfly
right.
and
All right,
elephant.
it's an elephant up there. So, if this, and when we embody this concept, that life is really a projection of our vibration, and that all of the objects therefore outside our brain or outside our physical expression are vibrating to our energy and are resonating back to us what we are projecting to it, it makes you think about other humans and animals. How do that fall in that category? And the truth is that there's not a big of a difference. It's just whatever we make out of that. And you probably know the saying, how people tell other people, you treat people like objects. Well, yeah, we do that. There's a reason why we do that. The reason is because we perceive it to be outside of ourselves. And the fault, if you can say a fault, or what is missing in those situations, is the understanding that another human being is a world on its own and has the same capabilities that I have, and is an observer and a projector much like I do, which is slightly different than an animal, and a very bigger difference than a stone. So it brings me to what we've been speaking, Callie and I, yesterday about, acknowledging the other person. And it starts with your immediate loved one. It starts with the people that are mostly participating, taking a role in your life. Think about it for a second. The more people have take a bigger chunk of your life. They are connected with you more, or they are just there, present, more than others. Those are the people that resonate the most back to you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there in your life. You would create some kind of a scenario that they would go out of your life. If they are present in your life, if they take a big part of your life, then they are exactly that. They are a huge part of your life. And it's time to recognize that. It's time to give them that acknowledgement. Callie and I we were speaking yesterday. Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
We were speaking yesterday about seeing the partner, seeing the other person in a relationship. Sometimes the partner can dance around and try to do his best, and if I am not in the right set of mind, if my mind and my reality is clouded by problems, difficulties, or even just news that I'm feeding myself with during a time like we have now, then my mind is literally clouded and I'm not being able to see all of the things that my partner is doing for me and for our relationships. And it's as important to stop and again, I don't want him to...
I'm watching.
Mm-hmm. It's important again and again to stop and acknowledge the partner in that role. Acknowledge the big role that he is playing in my life. Otherwise, he becomes an object, or she becomes an object. If I am not continuously acknowledging it, continuously seeing, actively and consciously seeing that person, he or she becomes much like an object. Because think about the book that you finished reading it, you laid aside, how much attention you give it anymore. Think about the plate that is in a cupboard that you use from time to time to eat. How much do you acknowledge that? The pen that you're holding in your hand that you're using to write, how much do you acknowledge it? The service that it does for you, the presence that it has, the life that it contains, the space that it holds. It was manufactured. It was given energy by a person, by a machine. It has a physical form. It is condensed. And it reacts to me. It doesn't have, apparently, a will of its own, so I can grab it and move it and use it as I please. And there will come a day that it would be empty of its usefulness and I will discard that. How much of this do we acknowledge? Do we appreciate? It starts with such a simple thing, my friends. And then it goes on to the next door neighbor. Or it goes on to the cashier in the supermarket. Or the dog that passes us on the road. Or the owl that cries out at night from time to time. Do we really listen? Do we hear it? Do we acknowledge that it's trying to communicate with us? Because it's suddenly in our reality. It is suddenly in our sphere of observation. It's not just there by mistake, or it's not just a coincidence. If you notice that owl, if you notice that dog, it has something to tell you.
I'd like to say something.
Trying to reconnect. Here we go.
It's okay. I'm in the shadow. How perfect. Because that's exactly what I was going to talk about, or that's what we were mentioning earlier. What Sagi's saying is that every aspect, every person, every aspect of creation wants to be seen. Donald Trump, right? He wants to be. Okay, maybe I'm.
No. If you want something else, it's good.
No, I was only gonna bring together what you were saying and what.
Please do. אוי, אתה רוצה לשחק בזה? Everybody is waiting for you to continue, baby.
I'm not wanting to. I'm distracted and.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So, it's back to me. And yeah, actually, Kali is. I will continue on that.
I just
Yeah.
like you were going in all these different big picture directions, and what we were talking about more in what's relative to what's happening right now, right? There seems to be so much contrast and so much intensity and separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we can all acknowledge it's easy to acknowledge the aspects of the light, that like feel good and that bring us joy, or like when our partners, like doing something that's very present and that's immediately bringing us joy. It's really easy to acknowledge that and to be in the experience of that. And when there's heavier aspects present within us, or within our experience, or within the collective, it's much more challenging to remain compassionate and remain in appreciation for those darker.
Yeah. So let's touch this for a second. Let's touch base on that, on the dark side. But before we get into the dark side, let's speak first about the shadow. So, what is the shadow?
Okay, I'll let you.
Where are you going? The shadow is the unseen part of reality. The shadow is the dark side that is casted upon the ground when light is shed upon an object or upon a person. He wants very much to play with that thing.
Will you grab it?
The shadow, yeah, let's stick with simplicity. A shadow is cast down when the not illuminated side of an object or a person is being present. That's what a shadow means. And the shadow is very much alive. The shadow is alive. It's a being. It's a part of what we are. It's a part of what we are. And it needs to be acknowledged. It asks for acknowledgement, and we see it right now being present in our reality. If it comes to conspiracy theories that are suddenly surfacing, if it comes to political quarrels that are suddenly seem to be very much in our face, things start to surface right now, and they all want to be seen. And if we can, the better we can, the more we can acknowledge them, is the better service that we are doing for ourselves and for humanity. It is time for us to rise and to understand that we have come into a global understanding of life. We started life as being very individual, being very egoistic, thinking about ourselves, and then it expanded to the family, then it expanded to the tribe, then it expanded again to a city concept, and then it expanded to a nation. And now it's turning once again, and we start realizing that we are affecting each other constantly, and that we are granted with a gift and with an honor of moving into an global understanding as humanity. Humanity. And part of this physical life is shadow, is unilluminated, is the dark side. And there's no right or wrong in it. Right now, there's a half of the globe which is on the dark side. And it's never changing. We experience day and night because we are stationary, we are not moving. But Earth, the globe, experience day and night constantly. There's constant day and constant night on this earth. And shadow is in between. That's what shadow is. Is the dark part when there's illumination. And that part wants to be seen, wants to be acknowledged, much like a partner wants to be acknowledged, much like a toddler or a baby that makes noises, that wants something, wants to be acknowledged, much like that dog passing on the street wants to be acknowledged. We all want to be acknowledged. And I know that walking a spiritual path, there are some spiritual teachings that tells us to negate the existence of self, to negate being egoistic. And there's truth to it. But the reason, or let's say the way to go beyond, is to go through. כן, רובי. היי בבלה, שלום מתוקי. The way is to acknowledge all those aspects that wants to be seen, even the dark ones. To acknowledge all those people that wants to be seen, even the dark ones. To acknowledge the shadow that wants finally to be seen. For as long as it stays in the shadows, we cannot move on. We cannot integrate the part of us that we are not giving attention to. And those are the parts that keep on nagging us, that keep on doing things, shouting or creating a havoc. So we address them, so we acknowledge them. And then we can integrate them, diffusing any kind of charge that we have given there beforehand, plus and a minus, a positive and a negative, a right and a wrong. Going beyond all of this, diffusing it and integrating it, shedding light and uniting it with the dark, and moving into a whole new expression. Thank you guys for being there, for listening in, for allowing me to express myself. This is tremendous joy. Thank you so much, and see you again.